Why does everyone love Sanguinius and then absolutely clown on Konrad? Let's talk about that. What's up, everybody? Angron's calmest son today. I don't know. I'm actually pretty tired. Angron's tiredest son here on YouTube right now to talk to you guys about the broader appeal, right? So who really appeals more to who? Why does Sanguinius work when Konrad Cruze does not? And when I refer to who works and who doesn't, I'm not saying why do people like Sanguinius more than Konrad, or why do people like Konrad more than Sanguinius. That's not what I'm saying, or at least it's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying, and I'm trying to have a discussion with you guys as well as myself in a way, what makes the appeal of Sanguinius so much more than, let's say, Konrad, whether this would be in universe or in a meta sense, right? So let's start with the basics. Sanguinius is this noble, deified figure in 40k, even in 30k when he's still alive. You know, the legion of noble warriors who pursue arts and sciences and are quite intellectual, and they aspire to help people, and they try their best to help people, and they're revered, and they turn the ugly beautiful when they get recruited to the Space Marines and they become Blood Angels, right? It's safe to say Sanguinius is a pretty popular dude, and the Blood Angels are extremely popular, ranging from Mephiston, Dante, and Sanguinius himself, the Sanguinor. There's so many really popular, references or direct showcases of the Blood Angels being uber gigachads, right? Not gonna argue that. But then we have the Night Lords and Konrad. Konrad is this depressive, self-loathing character who's in a constant cycle of self-doubt, self-sabotage, and just kind of having self-loathing that probably surpasses Mortarion, which is kind of an impressive thing. Even like in and of itself, super impressive to out self-loathe Mortarion, but here we are, right? And he has the Legion of Criminals, the Legion of the Scum of the Earth from Nostromo. They engage in terror tactics, emotional, psychological, physical tactics to break you down in a level that has not been seen, so they can win fights and scare you and take resources and pillage and be dishonorable, if you will, right? And yet there's still a huge notable fan base for loving them because they're so cartoonishly evil, like Saturday morning cartoon villains, right? Talos is a pretty cool character, not a good guy. Most of First Claw, pretty awful, you know what I'm saying? So Sevatar, still a really, really cool dude who I think his legacy probably outshines Cruze's in even modern day 40k. So I again, just impressive, and it speaks to Cruze himself in a contextual sense in universe how this dude's legacy is just not there, while really Sanguinius's spans to 30k to 40k to whatever iteration we're going to get into, whatever new book series is going to get released, whether that's on the Scouring, whether that's, who knows what's going to happen, right? So why does one work and why does the other not work? Why does everybody love Sanguinius when I would really argue both their legions and even the primarchs themselves I'm referring to have a really impressive amount of similarities in a way? So why don't we start with that? Let's start with their similarities, right? So obviously the big one that everyone refers to, that you're going to see all the YouTubers refer to, from the Major Kills to the Lutons and Mr. Boneses and Pancreas No Nutworks to literally anybody who's anybody, to the good old Connor K 40k, they're little gifts of the warp, they're visions of the future, right? So the difference between the two, and if you don't know, I'm sure most of you who are watching are pretty either at a surface level familiar with Warhammer, or at least get the gist of what I'm saying, right? Konrad and Sanguinius both see visions of the future, visions of 40k, visions of the heresy, and famously Konrad sees the vision of M. Shen killing him when he could have fought back, but he didn't because of vindication, edgy little Batman over here. And Sanguinius sees his death, he knows what's going to happen when it's going to happen, but he doesn't see it as finite. Sanguinius has the opportunity to decide that these visions don't really mean anything until he makes them mean something, right? He has options. Do something, don't something. Do something, don't do something, or the third option, do the opposite thing. Sanguinius doesn't take these visions as being finite or set in stone. Konrad sees them and says, this is what I have to do, this is what I must do, because this is what is being foretold. Obviously, that puts a lot of people off from Konrad because, oh, this dude is, again, as I described earlier, self-loathing and all the other negative attributes you could just, ascribe to him. Sanguinius, on the other hand, has this cool approach where, obviously, no, the future is what I make of it. And if this is the best possible outcome, then I will fulfill said vision, right? So that's their really, really big connection, right? They're super, super in common trait. But let's go a little bit more scattered, a little more nuanced. The nails are biting. So, of course, I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper into this as to why one works and why one does not work. Let's talk about legions. Blood Angels, for what it's worth, popular guys. Very well known, very cool, right? The Uber Chads, Giga Chads, oh man. Mephiston, super cool. Sanguinor, Dante, really cool, right? Well known in universe and in a meta context as well. All of these characters I listed have a huge amount of fans. They're a noble legion. They invest in the arts. They're introspective, philosophical. They have other sets of hobbies and other ascribed traits that you would say they have something going on. They are a purpose, a legion with a defined purpose, right? Night Lords, recruited from the worst of the worst. Nostrama when it was existing. Now, you're taking people from random death worlds, just kids slapping some gene seed in them, saying, here you go. This gun belonged to, Lord Murderface, Atrocity War Crime the Fourth. I need you to go blast some Imperial, son. You know what I'm saying? Criminals. It doesn't work. They're evil. They do terror tactics. But again, they really do have a lot more in common than people give them credit for. Before Sanguinius was with the Blood Angels, they were savages, brutal. They rivaled the World Eaters in savagery and brutality, right? They were almost as bad, if not worse, than the Night Lords, and still have some of these traits where they fall to the red thirst, where they need that blood and violence. And now it would be the Black Rage as well, where nobody wants them to know, where that, the Blood Angels don't want anybody to know, or at least don't want it to be a widely known thing, that they have this red thirst and Black Rage, where they succumb to violence and start attacking pretty much everybody because, your battle brother, Johnson Lonson is starting to look a little like he's suffering from hair loss, and he's a little bald, and all of a sudden he kind of looks like Horus. And you're wondering why he betrayed you and betrayed your father, right? That savagery is still there, and yet they still work because they have the options and abilities and resources to combat the afflictions that are there, right? Meanwhile, Night Lords kind of embraced, or at least have accepted and then further embraced as the setting continued, their debauchery, their terror tactics, the sick perversion of justice, if you will. It's gnarly stuff. Even Sevatar, who's, I think the closest you could say a Night Lord is a hero, still engages in this level of brutality that hasn't been seen, but it works for him because it's seen as this noble savagery that you could ascribe to the Blood Angels, right? Can't really ascribe that to the whole Legion when they're literally basically space pirates at this rate. They're like the Red Corsairs, most of them, even though I know there's a lot of war bands going on. I know everybody's different. Even in Chaos Legions, they're not all the same. I understand. You can get in the comments and you can well actually me. We could have a well actually moment. But right now in this video, I'm just saying most of the Night Lords are pretty much like pirates, man. Like most Chaos war bands and Chaos Legions, they pillage. They try to get, arms of weapons and gene seed and all this stuff. Nothing noble about them. They're funny and they work sometimes because they're so cartoonishly evil. Again, they're Saturday morning cartoon villains. It just works, right? But only in that sense. While the Blood Angels obviously have a much wider area of opportunity to thrive in both, again, meta sense and in-universe sense, right? Because of loyalists and all that jazz, even though I myself am a firm chaos supporter, blood for the blood god and all that stuff. But yeah, again, that just so many similarities. And even then, another similarity I do want to touch on that may not necessarily be related to two of the legions. Konrad and Corvus Corax, literal reflections of each other, and yet people kind of glorify Corax. Oh, he's a freedom fighter, all this and that, when they still have the same level of self-hypocrisy that nobody really calls Corvus out on a lot. They call him out on being a hypocritical guy when it comes to the freedom fighting and yet fighting under the Emperor, because, oh, after the Great Crusade, Corvus could have figured out these issues and maybe started improving conditions for humanity. Obviously didn't happen. I don't even think he would really believe that in universe. And yet, the two are so, like, mirror reflections of what each other could have been, right? There's, like, this dark figures with black hair and jet black eyes, and they're doing their stuff, and they're still just so close together, and yet Corvus is still seen as, like, a much more heroic figure, when in actuality, they're maybe just one step above each other, really, in that same sense. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, and that was just something I kind of wanted to get out there. I know that was kind of an aside, but I just wanted to talk about that as a whole. And let's see, there might be one other thing I could really say as to why one works and one doesn't. Well, we could do this as well. Sanguinius is actually a good character, and I'm not saying Konrad's a bad character, because he's not at all. Konrad has significant appeal, and this whole video is not really designed to say one's better than the other. I'm just saying why one, on a spectrum of popularity and just general sense of who likes what, why Angel Boy over here is absolutely cooking it in the popularity contest, and why, you know, emo dollar store from Wish, Batman, you know, edgelord himself, only has like a cult following of you know, a good amount of people. You know, Sanguinius is cool. Sanguinius, more often than not, really reaffirms with every flaw he has why those flaws make him a character, why those flaws work in his favor, and he wears them almost like a shield, right? He understands the red thirst is an issue, and he has to conceal it. But it also works in favor of the Legion for, you know, the bloodlust helps them be better fighters, and they also, in turn, have to reconcile with the fact that this is going to be an issue, so they need to have other hobbies and other ways to curb it. So they pick fields of interests, and like those previous hobbies I mentioned earlier, like painting and philosophy and all this other adjacent stuff, that makes them characters, that gives these characters attributes that assign to them heroic traits. And you look at them, and you look at Dante, you look at Mephiston, even though personally, again, I'm not really a huge Mephiston fan, because he just kind of seems like super overpowered, but without like the fun of it. Or the Sanguinor, these characters that come in and do things in critical moments, and you're like, this is a character who's awesome. This is a warrior, someone who means something in the setting of only war. And then we shift it over to the Night Lords. They only work in the capacity that you need to see it from their perspective, otherwise they don't work. The Night Lords worked because we saw it from their perspective. We saw from Talos's point of view, where Night Lords were engaging in their terror tactics and torture and everything, and we could see flashbacks of Talos talking with Konrad Cruze about, Konrad says, don't kill M. Shen, but then he does it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, it only works from their perspective when you see it from their perspective. But when we're looking on the outside, the appeal dramatically kind of goes down, because they are fun. They're only fun from their point of view. Their Saturday morning cartoon villains are fun when you only see them on Saturdays. When you see them on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the appeal really goes down, and they get really boring really fast, right? While as the heroes are always cool because they're always doing heroic shit. You know what I'm saying? I know that wasn't the most succinct or most eloquent way to put it, but those were just, you know, those were my reasons why I think one works when the other doesn't. And I'm also curious as to what you guys think. Do you think Konrad works more than Sanguinius? Do you think I missed something? Is there something, you know, that I got wrong? Let me know. I love to read your comments. You guys always you guys have pretty good points, even though Lord of Blood always says I'm correct because this is my YouTube channel, so by default I'm biased, and everything I say is always right. Don't fact check me, because if I'm wrong, then the computer's wrong. I'm just kidding, guys. But yeah. That being said, just leave comments. Love hearing what you guys say, and thank you so much. And I am out here.